It's a new edition of the Bigfoot Journal, your twice-monthly Bigfoot news update. What happened and what's ahead in Bigfoot research and news, only on the Untold Radio Network. The Bigfoot Journal is now. With your host, Mike Luci.
And we're back. Cue that music. What's going on, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to episode 13 of the Bigfoot Journal, your twice monthly review of what happened and what's ahead in the Bigfoot world. Things got a little busy for us since our last episode, but we are back for the next go-around and the official halfway point of our first season. If it's your first time watching, here's a quick crash course. We sweep the internet twice a month, highlight the top Bigfoot reports and news stories, and share our findings in a fast-paced 30-minute time frame. Here are this episode's top stories. Bigfoot and bears, what's the difference? Our lead story breaks down how to potentially tell them apart, and in some ways these key details can help researchers gather more credible witness reports. The You Decide portion of our report roundup is back this episode, and examines one bizarre video taken by a Maryland hunter in 2012. We're also discussing if a newly formed task force could declassify anything the government has on Bigfoot and what those documents might reveal in this episode's 359. It's been a pretty eventful month in the world of Bigfoot, and you're getting the full scoop, so make sure you're comfortable and ready to go because you don't want to miss a second of everything we've got planned. Episode 13 starts now.
Bigfoot and Science is now.
Earlier this month, yours truly and co-host Chuck Larson were featured in the latest episode of Small Town Monsters Appalachian Bigfoot Files, The Skyline Sasquatch.
This part of New Jersey isn't like the part of New Jersey you see on The Sopranos. You know what I mean? It's wooded. It's all protected.
Filmmaker Alex Petikoff covers Bigfoot lore and reports along sections of the Appalachian Trail in southern New York and northern New Jersey, like Greenwood Lake, Clinton Road, and the Delaware Water Gap.
For something like a Squatch could, in theory, just use it as a travel route to move through undetected.
For part of this episode, Chuck and I spent some time covering the story of Pedals the bear, who became a local celebrity in North Jersey after he was frequently spotted walking on his hind legs. So with the story of Pedals in mind, I touch on three major differences between the appearances of bears and Bigfoot in this episode: arm posture, limb proportions, and head shape. Our lead story will examine the role bears seem to have in misidentifications and take a closer look at these three main differences. To start this analysis, we're going to revisit a 2024 study published in the Journal of Zoology that caused quite a stir in the Bigfoot community. It argued that a correlation between bear populations and Bigfoot reports can dismiss most sightings as mistaken identity, citing key data points like there being one Bigfoot sighting for every 5,000 black bears and a 4% increase among reports for every 1,000 black bears in a given area. While its findings weren't declared as absolute, the study has some loose ends that weren't adequately addressed. The article looked at overlap in the US and Canada between Bigfoot reports, forest cover, along with human and black bear populations. However, this analysis only appears to be modeled around data from the year 2006. It also doesn't clarify whether all three classes of Bigfoot reports, A, B, and C, were included. Without clarifying this particular factor, it could potentially misconstrue the study's results by overinflating the total number of Bigfoot reports, since Class Bs technically aren't visual encounters. Using more recent data, when we compare the top 10 US states for Class A reports on the BFRO public database from 2014 to 2024, and 2024 estimates of black bear populations, Washington is the only state that appears on both these lists. When we look at Class A reports and black bears per 100,000 people, West Virginia, Idaho, and Montana are the only three states in both top 10 categories. The study also doesn't really account for states with high volumes of Bigfoot reports, where residential bear populations are extremely low or virtually non-existent, like Ohio, Illinois, and Texas. However, it's worth noting that on those select few occasions they do show up in areas where people aren't used to seeing them, mistakes can probably be made, especially if you have Bigfoot on the brain. Now let's get into more detail on those three main differences in the appearances of bears and Bigfoot. Although there's very limited data available on bear arm spans and proportions, one of the biggest distinctions is posture. Upright bears usually have their arms protruding outward, tucked alongside their chests, and seem to have a stiff, awkward posture when standing. Bear arms are also hinged at their elbow joints and usually tend to be angled toward each other to some degree when they're standing upright. Even when fully outstretched, a bear's arms more or less usually barely hang below their hips. Squatches, on the other hand, are commonly described as having broad chests with hulking shoulders and arms that hang at their sides. Bear arms, for the most part, lack the muscular definition commonly noted in Bigfoot sightings. Bears also have paws instead of hands without actual fingers, unlike squatches, which is another characteristic that they allegedly have in common with great apes. I found a few stills of upright bears that show what I mean, and made some rough measurements on the proportions between each one's arm span and height. As you can see, the ratios are a little less, or roughly around 1:1. For context, the arm span to height ratio for humans is usually 1:1. For other great apes, like gorillas, chimpanzees, and orangutans, their arm span is usually about 20 to sometimes 40% longer than their height. In many Bigfoot descriptions, their arms are described as stretching well below their hips. In these stills of Patty from the infamous Patterson-Gimlin film, the measurements I made showed its arm span is about 15 to 20% longer than its actual height. Moving on to the differences between Bigfoot and bear heads, there are two major distinctions. Bear heads are usually large and bulging with thick necks. Squatches, on the other hand, are commonly depicted as having no neck and cone-shaped heads that are seemingly attached directly to their shoulders. Bear heads also have ears in the upper corners of them, along with long snouts or muzzles. Most Bigfoot reports describe them having relatively flat faces with no visible ears. Overall, these are small but notable characteristics that researchers can use to rule out misidentified bears when vetting potential Bigfoot sightings while considering other factors like circumstance, witness reliability, and depth of detail. You'll find links to the full Skyline Sasquatch episode and Alex's entire Appalachian and Bigfoot file series in the video's description. I definitely encourage you to give them all a watch. So for the most part, many, but perhaps not all, Bigfoot sightings still might fall into the category of misidentification. And even if bears are among the top culprits in these cases, insights like those the story of Petals offers can still shed light on the key differences in appearances between them and squatches. They might not be the key to solving this mystery, but can be extremely useful in helping researchers rule out common predators like bears, and more importantly, gather more accurate, credible, detailed reports.
Pop culture news is now.
Nowadays, audiences in the cryptid community are largely divided into two major categories: those who seek the truth and those who just want to be entertained. The latter has more or less become a dominant component in this field, at least according to recent search trends. In the case of Bigfoot, look how Google Trends shows us broad search terms on YouTube in the United States, like Bigfoot sightings, videos, encounters, and stories have performed in the last 5 years. And while all of them have largely seen recent uptrends, Bigfoot stories looks to be ranked the second highest search term and was even above Bigfoot sightings for most of 2024. And it's understandable why content centered around witness encounters performs so well. At face value, they are exactly what's depicted: stories, a form of entertainment. They also cast a wider net of potential viewers compared to the topical or data-focused videos that feature more technical elements. And in addition to containing more drawing elements like curiosity, fear, and suspense, these stories are easy for viewers to follow and don't require much thought. They cater to people's shifty attention spans nowadays, while satisfying key metrics of the YouTube algorithm, like longer watch times and higher engagement. And from a marketing standpoint, they offer plenty of flexibility for generating intrigue when creating video thumbnails, titles, and descriptions. While there's no question that Bigfoot encounter stories are surging in popularity, we'll review some ways that they could be influencing how this phenomena is being perceived. both positively and negatively. And perhaps their biggest positive is the awareness that they are raising. With thousands of stories out there, just on YouTube alone, and several more that seem to surface every day, it creates the notion that squatches are more abundant than originally believed. This may inspire people to learn more about reports in their area or venture out into the woods and make credible witnesses comfortable enough to share their stories. It's probably no coincidence that the increased number of these stories seems to correlate with a rise in more expeditions being held by organizations, along with the slight bump in scientific institutions that are more willing to analyze potential evidence. The downsides, however, could potentially offset and possibly even overshadow these positive aspects. Most people with any degree of belief of Bigfoot, for example, probably agree that they are an elusive and rare creature. But with thousands, possibly tens of thousands at this point, of these stories available on outlets like YouTube, Reddit, and Facebook, one can argue these inflated numbers create a stark contradiction. If this many people are seeing these creatures, then wouldn't we have concrete proof of their existence by now? Unless the vast majority of these stories are fake or misidentified, it's a very difficult and uncomfortable question to answer in the believer camp. While some channels and platforms claim to do their due diligence, several others muddy the waters by narrating fictional accounts, whether or not they clarify this critically important detail. For dedicated researchers, it makes the task of separating fact from fiction extremely difficult and perhaps impossible. Even if the scores of Bigfoot stories are potentially encouraging actual witnesses to come forward, they also may embolden others to make up encounters. We all know that hoaxing has done irreparable damage in this field, and considering how easy it is to fabricate a story, it's easy to understand why mainstream science is reluctant or outright refuses to take this topic seriously. And let's be real. If we want any chance at ever solving this mystery, it probably won't happen without the resources that major scientific institutions can provide. If we want Bigfoot to sustain its growing popularity, we are tasked with maintaining a complex balancing act between entertainment and research amid these thousands of encounter stories. Critical thinkers can navigate this environment by taking these stories case by case. Be conscious of factors like confirmation bias and decide if their fascination with Bigfoot hinges on entertainment or contributing to the advancement of serious research. Because hidden within all these stories lies an element of truth that could potentially help us answer the big question that has eluded us for centuries. Is Bigfoot real?
News and updates are now.
So get this, Bigfoot could gain official recognition by the state of California. A new bill was revealed earlier this month that would make Bigfoot the official state cryptid of California. Here are the details. Assembly Bill 666 was introduced by Assemblyman Chris Rogers on February 14th. The bill simply reads, quote, "It is the intent of the legislature to enact legislation that would designate Bigfoot as the official state cryptid." Assemblyman Rogers represents District 2 in Northern California, which includes Del Norte, Humboldt, Mendocino, Sonoma, and Trinity counties. It's been read aloud in the State Assembly and is now being distributed for committee members to review. The bill could officially be heard on March 17th. If it clears committee, it then will be put to a vote by California State Assembly and Senate. Should the bill pass both chambers, it will reach the governor's desk, where it may be signed into law. Supporters of the bill believe it could bring notoriety and boost tourism in this part of Northern California. This part of the state has a well-documented history of Bigfoot lore and encounters that dates back centuries. Humboldt County, for example, is where the infamous Patterson-Gimlin film was recorded on October 20th, 1967. The 5 aforementioned counties have 117 reports published on the BFRO database, which account for about 25% of California's reports. Prominent members of the Bigfoot community have commented on the Assembly Bill 666. BFRO founder Matt Moneymaker thought the bill was a joke at first. After realizing it was serious, Moneymaker said the bill makes sense, noting how the term Bigfoot was coined in this part of California. Prior to this event, what most of us know as Bigfoot went by a variety of different names across North America, mostly based on Native American lore before the term was consolidated. In addition to his support for Assembly Bill 666, Moneymaker said he would love to be in Sacramento if the bill gets signed. To reiterate, Assembly Bill 666 is still in its early stages. The bill has quite a few hurdles before it potentially gets signed into law. If these events pan out, it would make California the first state to have an official cryptid. It's definitely another big sign of Bigfoot's relevance in modern pop culture. Despite the virtual absence of absolute proof, it shows that belief and enthusiasm for the Bigfoot legend shows no signs of waning in 2025.
Report Roundup is now.
Alright, it's time for our report roundup. If they're out there, it's our part of the show that updates you on the latest Bigfoot reports from major databases and across the internet. This episode's roundup is examining one YouTuber's encounter in the Canadian wilderness, some compelling and questionable reports from the Midwest, plus the You Decide part of our roundup is back and it's breaking down one Maryland hunter's alleged video taken in 2012. There are some solid reports added to the Bigfoot mapping project since our last episode, but I found one that really caught my eye. It comes from two paranormal investigators who mainly focus on ghosts. Earlier this month, they were investigating a reportedly haunted location called Hawk and Hole Lake in Nova Scotia. According to their report, they first smelled a foul odor that resembled a wet dog or animal. While hiking down a trail, they reported hearing nearby knocking sounds, after which one of them described seeing the backside of a large animal. After it disappeared, he claimed to see the shadow of a 10-foot tall ape-like being that was shaking a tree. There's two details I like about this report. First, these investigators mainly focus on hauntings and supernatural phenomena. Second, they were filming for their YouTube channel called Paranormal Discovery and documented their encounter. I spoke with Lomar, who gave me permission to feature some footage from that episode. This first clip caught one of the knocking sounds they heard that night.
Whoa!
What?
Did you not hear that bang?
No.
That was a tree knock.
In this next one, watch what happens to Lomar's partner Chelsea when he starts making calls.
Oh. Oh, don't do that.
What?
Oh, hold this.
What?
Oh, no, that, like, the second you started doing that, like a really, really sharp pain.
Some of you might find what Chelsea experienced as being eerily similar to the alleged zapping phenomenon that many researchers consider Bigfoot-related activity. This last clip shows when Lomar had the potential sighting described in their report.
We wouldn't have moose out here, would we?
Sometimes they do come to Nova Scotia.
I know we have moose in Nova Scotia, but...
Holy shit, that was tall. Oh,
Are you kidding right now?
Chelsea, all my life, I'm seeing like a 10-foot figure.
Okay, what the
That was... Chelsea, I swear.
I know, I believe you.
I swear.
Keep yourself calm. They can smell fear. Know that.
Bad. Chelsea.
There's links to the full episode and Paranormal Discovery channel in the video's description. I highly recommend giving them a watch. Let us know what you think about their encounter in the comments.
You guys had to hear that knocking. It was clear as day. Like, clear as day.
It's right in there.
There was no wind, no reason for the moves to be moving at all.
While we initially found this one on Reddit, we're putting it under the Facebook category because that's where it originated. A post on the Wildlife Prairie Park Facebook page contains images that allegedly show large human-like prints in a clump of fur. They were reportedly found below a location called the Pioneer Area along the floodplain trail. Using the hiking pole for scale, there appear to be at least two different sets of prints that respectively measured 9 to 14 inches. That one print above the pole's handle does admittedly look very bear-like. However, black bears are extremely rare in Illinois and don't have a residential population in the state. The clump of fur? Most people who commented believed it came from a deer or coyote, but if you think otherwise, let us know in the comments.
The Bigfoot subreddit continues to produce with two notable posts we thought were worth covering. This first one describes a possible encounter that allegedly occurred in central Ohio. The OP says it happened one night in August 2016 while they were catfishing with a friend. They both dozed off and were awoken by a deer screaming about 40 yards from their location. After the screams subsided, they allegedly heard something much larger than a deer move through the brush. When they headed towards their car, the OP says they smelled a foul odor. They turned on the car's headlights, and they saw a dark hominid shape run across the road, which allegedly had orange, yellowish eye shine and disappearing up a steep hill. When they returned the next day, they tried recreating the road crossing. The OP said that their friend was 6'5". They claimed that the alleged figure's eyes were at least 6 inches above their friend's head. The second post shows an eye-catching photo that allegedly was taken in 2018. We thought the photo looked familiar, and a reverse image search confirmed our suspicions. It appears to have originated from a video on the Bigfoot Evidence YouTube channel published in September of 2018. According to the video, someone named Jack sent them multiple photos he allegedly took of what he believes was a juvenile Bigfoot. Video claims that Jack's encounter happened during a fishing trip with his father. Jack said he spotted the creature watching them a few yards away and believed it was about 6 feet tall. He managed to snap these photos before the creature fled. So here's the kicker with these pictures. They were reportedly taken in the Boundary Waters Wilderness of northern Michigan. But there's a problem with that. Boundary Waters aren't in Michigan, they're in Minnesota. Next, if we look closely at these photos, there was something else about them that looked familiar. I'm not saying that's definitely the case, but nonetheless, one can argue the resemblance is a bit uncanny. Up next is the You Decide part of our roundup, where we break down a notable photo, video, or other potential piece of Bigfoot evidence. Our goal here is to lay out all the facts and details so we can help you decide if it's the real deal. Here's Mike with this episode's breakdown.
All right, we haven't done one of these in a while, so let's get down to business. Throughout the month of February, I've been seeing quite a few pieces of content regarding Bigfoot sightings and reports coming out of the state of Maryland. There was a recent Bigfoot Society episode on one man's alleged encounters in Western Maryland, plus some inquiries about reports from the state on Facebook and Reddit. Like many states in the Northeast US, Maryland has a surprisingly well-documented history of Bigfoot reports. And for me, between that and everything else I just mentioned, it was a good enough reason for me to break down one compelling video I've wanted to cover for quite some time.
What is that? What is?
Titled Sasquatch Sighting, Hancock, Maryland, the video comes from a channel called @BRRNT and was published on April 20th, 2012. All the description says is, saw a Sasquatch turkey hunting today. It's only 11 seconds long and shows someone filming in a wooded area. After the person filming asks what that is, something appears around the 3-second mark. Details are of course scant, and the footage is pretty grainy, but whatever it is, looks to be a solid black or dark brown color and walking upright. The person recording whispers something while observing the figure, which then stops and makes a deep grunt that sends the man running. The channel only has 2 other videos that were published in 2008 and 2014. Outside of the video we're examining, this channel has no other Bigfoot-related content. Hancock, Maryland is in Washington County, located in the state's western panhandle. As the crow flies, the Appalachian Trail is a little over 30 miles east of Hancock. It looks like the hunter started filming after noticing the alleged figure. Some might find this scenario more conceivable, probably not enough to rule out potential staging, but more ideal than conveniently recording a Bigfoot by chance. In 2012, Maryland's spring turkey season went from April 18th to May 23rd, so the date of publication falls within this time frame. Let's take a closer look at the figure in question. It appears around the 3-second mark and is visible for about 3 to 4 seconds. Again, I know the quality sucks, but at first glance, it looks like the figure is, at the very least, human size and moving on 2 legs. Here's a stabilized clip, zoomed in 71% and slowed by 50%. I'll play it a few times. While these edits don't make it any clearer, the figure is definitely obstructed, and I guess we can sorta make out its bipedal movement. Nonetheless, I think we can rule out something like a deer, coyote, or bobcat, possibly even a bear. That leaves us with 2 likely possibilities: another person, or, if they're real, a squatch. I also ran the audio through a spectrograph. What I like about this is you get a side-by-side comparison of the figure's grunt and hunter's gasp, both of which appear to have 2 different looking signatures. Next, I wanted to try and figure out what device took this footage. The vertical shot means it was probably recorded on a smartphone. Keeping the video's publication date in mind, April 20th, 2012, I pulled technical data on the video's frames, resolution, volume, and codecs. I threw this information into ChatGPT, which generated a list of 5 most likely smartphones released before April 2012. The 2 biggest takeaways were this footage was likely filmed at 480p and 30 frames per second. After considering the most popular smartphones sold in the US from 2011 to 2012 that fit these metrics, I narrowed it down to 3 models: the iPhone 3GS, Samsung Galaxy Ace, and HTC Desire. All 3 were respectively released in 2009, 2011, and 2010. I found test footage from all 3 models and compared them to the original footage with some help from ChatGPT. While the AI couldn't make a precise determination, it leaned towards this footage coming from a Samsung Galaxy Ace. Here's a side-by-side of the Samsung Galaxy Ace and original footage. I tried verifying the specific detail to explain the video's grainy quality. So to that point, it appears this video was most likely filmed in standard definition quality with a smartphone model that was still in common use around April 2012. Hopefully this breakdown provided enough information to help you decide if the Hancock, Maryland footage is a hoax, misidentification, or possibly the real deal. If you have any additional information about this video or notice something I might have overlooked, don't hesitate to share. Otherwise, that about does it for our latest report roundup. Remember, if they're out there, you'll hear about them, and who knows, maybe the next one happens somewhere near you.
The 359 is now.
Welcome back to the 359. It's when our team here finds something trending in the Bigfoot world. We have an open discussion on the topic, and we get the whole thing done in under 4 minutes. And here's what we got on tap for you. You might have to grab your tinfoil hat, though, for this one. What does the government know about Bigfoot? Earlier this month, Congresswoman Ana Paulina Luna was appointed to lead the task force on the declassification of federal secrets. The newly formed task force is expected to potentially release documents deemed to be in the public's interest, like records on President John F. Kennedy, 2020 pandemic, and UFOs, which begs the question, could they declassify any documents the government has on Bigfoot? Government knowledge and involvement on Bigfoot is a popular topic in this community. Prominent names in this field, like Jeremiah Bryan of the Bigfoot Society podcast, has encouraged people to contact Representative Luna and let her know that Bigfoot disclosure should be included in the task force declassification of federal secrets. So does the government contain classified documents on Bigfoot? What could they show, and will they ever be released? Let's dive in and see what the members of the Bigfoot Journal team think. Countdown begins.
I think like what we've seen, how they've handled the whole like UFO thing so far is probably like a good comparison, a good measuring stick. Like they'll probably release enough just to say like, you know, we acknowledge that this is being seen, but not enough to the point where it's an outright admission that we know what this is, or, you know, we know whether or not it exists.
If they do release it, they'll do like little tidbits first. You know what I mean? Like they're not going to like send out a major story. They'll release something that can keep people feeling safe, but then also, you know, satisfying a little bit of a curiosity. You know what I mean? So they're going to release it strategically to make them look good, and not like a bunch of, criminals that are just lying to people.
I do think what we are dealing with at the end of the day is, if there were to be declassification, for a lot of the believers, it would be news that's finally brought out to the public. But most people, it really depends on the population. Some probably just sit there and disagree. Some people will probably just sit there and not care. Because I do think there's a certain chunk of people in this world, they can care less if these all come out.
With the Bigfoot community being like a smaller type of community, maybe they send out tests with this community to see the reaction of people, to see the hysteria it creates. Bigfoot is a lot of people are curious. Like you said, a lot of people don't believe in it. So it could be a nice way to gauge people's reaction.
There's definitely a lot of people out there who are probably just indifferent or don't care about cryptids or cryptozoology. Like, I mean, I'm sure there will be like some type of backlash, some degree of hysteria, but I definitely think it's possible that the degree we would see probably wouldn't be nearly as strong compared to something like UFOs or, like maybe some of these other high profile cases that they're sitting on.
I think what it really brings it down to is that they not just want to hear the truth, but they also want to hear, is there a body? What does a body look like? What does one look like when deceased? Have we seen them as young? Have we had any concrete evidence? Is there photographs of humans with Bigfoot? I do believe that they have bodies that they've taken. Not to be on the conspiracy side of it, but I think it's just direct. I think it's just the fact that I do believe that they do have had bodies before.
So you believe some of those stories out there where someone like hit someone with the Bigfoot or shot one and the Men in Black came and just took the body away?
Yeah, I do believe that. I don't think they went away on a flying saucer, though.
Then take to the next step, though. Do they have them in captivity? You know what I mean? Yeah, they might have bodies.
Yes, I do think that there has been experimentation. I just think, too, that whatever it was done, I would love to know if that was the case. Because I believe the term is black cow.
Really?
Well, like they're coding, like the government has a code name for Bigfoot.
A long time ago, read this. Don't know how accurate it is, but I remember people were saying black cow.
What if the potential declassification kind of reveals that there's some type of like secret program, like a conservation type operation? Like there's some species of animals out there, their populations are just so rare, so fragile and delicate that their existence has to be withheld from the public to prevent any further risk of, human encroachment. Because, like, if Bigfoot's just like the tip of the iceberg, what other cryptids could potentially be out there that the government may or may not have classified information of? What other, animals that we thought might have been extinct that coverage of this program is extending to?
Then that could be a test too. Anything's possible, and they're doing research on everything. I could definitely see how they can, maybe release it and say, it's a Bigfoot, but they used this type of species to get this information.
If you're looking to go deeper into this rabbit hole, you'll find a few links on everything we've discussed in the video's description. Otherwise, that does it for this edition of the 359. Make sure to share your thoughts on what we discussed and any ideas for future topics. We hope you've enjoyed this powwow and look forward to the next one.
Bigfoot Spotlight is now.
What's going on, everybody? We're back at it for another Bigfoot Spotlight, the part of our show where we highlight a few recent Bigfoot live streams, films, and events. In this edition, we're spotlighting a new documentary, a few recent podcasts, and an upcoming conference. Let's get down to business. We're starting off with the new documentary titled In Search of Sasquatch, Secret Bigfoot Encounters on the Wild Man of the Woods YouTube channel. In this documentary, Amy Boo, co-founder of Project Zoobook, recounts 2 shocking Sasquatch encounters.
The first time I saw something, it was about 100 yards away.
Once a Bigfoot skeptic, Amy talks about how these experiences started her journey to bridging the gap between cryptozoology and science. She talks about the role Project Zoobook plays in her mission's goals and brings us to come of Ohio's alleged Bigfoot hotspots. This documentary looks to take us one step closer towards uncovering the truth about Bigfoot by blending eyewitness testimony with expert insights and scientific analysis.
Saw that before.
Next, I'm spotlighting a new podcast from Bigfoot researcher and Olympic Project member Shane Corson called Sasquatch in the Mist. If you have ever seen Shane speak at conferences or heard him on other podcasts, you probably know that Shane is a highly intelligent and insightful researcher who puts an unparalleled degree of effort into his work. As Shane says in his introductory video, he believes there is still a lot out there to explore and many discoveries to be made that are right around the corner. We can't wait to see what Shane has planned. All of us here at Bigfoot Journal are very excited to follow Shane in this new chapter of his journey. Now, onto the conference. I'm spotlighting the Encounters Conference 2025, a two-day event that will be held in Jonesboro, Georgia on March 14th and 15th that has a very engaging itinerary. Doors open at 4 p.m. on Friday, March 14th. You can hear witness encounters at 5 p.m. On Saturday, March 15th, things get going at 8 a.m. with their lineup of speakers starting at 9. Speakers for this event include Neil Ryder, Greg Ogles, Amanda Stowers, and Bob Dahl. There's a speaker panel at 5 p.m. and a Bigfoot movie playing at 6 p.m. You can buy tickets at encountersconference.com. Finally, I'm spotlighting two recent podcasts that both feature a familiar face. First one is the Ancient Enigma Files, The Mystery of Bigfoot Revealed. Gotta love that title. In this episode, I was fortunate enough to join Professor Augustus, the fantastic host to the show, along with the researcher Harley Owens.
This thing is wild, man. Check that out.
Hold on, I can put my freaking glasses on for this.
We talked about our different experiences and thoughts on a variety of high strangeness topics. Harley shows the audience a couple of large foot casts he casted in eastern Tennessee, and a very bizarre photo that definitely got me thinking. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Last but not least, Linda Eastburn returns to our Bigfoot Spotlight in one of her recent episodes titled Bigfoot Sighting Reported in New Jersey Paper.
And then we hear clack, 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 clack. A couple seconds after that, we hear a wood knock back. So I was like, Mike, you gotta start, recording, put this thing on, hide it.
I also had the honor of being interviewed by Linda in this episode, who was a wonderful host. We discussed the history of Bigfoot encounters in North Jersey, including one famous incident that made the local papers. I also talk about some of my first-hand experiences in the Garden State, including one strange occurrence Mike and I had while investigating one witness's property. And that wraps up this episode's Bigfoot Spotlight. You'll find the links to everything I covered in the video's description. If there's a recent or upcoming Bigfoot livestream, film, or event you'd like me to spotlight, shoot me a message or email with the details. Mike, take us out.
Well, we are officially at the halfway mark of Season 1. I really hope you've enjoyed things so far because there's so much to do in reporting what happened and what's ahead in the Bigfoot world. Make sure to check out the video's description for more information on everything we covered, and if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment here on Untold and the CARC. If you have questions, a story to share, or want the CARC to investigate your Bigfoot encounter, shoot us an email or drop a line in the comments. For Chuck, Chris, and Toby, I'm Mike Luci signing off. We appreciate each and every one of you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Program is distributed by the Untold Radio Network. All rights reserved.